Welcome back to Small Caps. My name's Kerry Stevenson. Today, I've asked Martin Carolan, Managing Director and CEO of Provaris, to come back and have a chat with us. The ASX code is PV1. Now, Provaris, what do? They do compressed hydrogen storage and also transport solutions. Now, many of you will know hydrogen, new energy. There's an energy crisis going on. It's a pretty exciting time. And they've also just recently announced an MOU. I will not take that away from Martin and making a chat about that later. So, Martin, welcome back to Small Caps. It's been a while. Last time we spoke was November last year. Where's the time going?
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. It has been a while.
So let's just start with there's a new name. So if people were wanting to go back and have a look at our previous interview, it would be under Global Energy Ventures. New name is Provaris. Give our viewers, if you would like, just a brief overview before we go into today's announcement. Who are Provaris?
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. So Pravaris is developing integrated hydrogen projects. So we do that in two main ways. We're doing the development of the upstream molecule. An example of that is our TWH2 project, where we own the upstream production and then integrate that with our shipping solution. And then in areas like Europe and other parts of Asia, we'll be providing just the shipping and compression solution. So that's a kind of a midstream offering. So two ways we go to market, but ultimately compression integrates with the upstream development, and it's starting to gain traction as we move towards the sanctioning of these new big projects to supply both Asia and particularly into Europe.
Hydrogen, there's hydrogen being talked about a lot, and I know you've just come back from Europe. What are the challenges with using hydrogen as a solution to this energy crisis we're all talking about at the moment?
Well, I think the two key challenges that have been spoken about for the last 2 years is storage and transport. So hydrogen has been produced over the last 50 years. It's integral to many applications, refinery and other different applications. So the method of being able to store and transport that both efficiently and economically has been the challenge. The next one has been the emergence of the large-scale market. So this transition of energy away from fossil fuels to greener sources started back in 2019. Australia was one of the leaders in hydrogen strategy. You've now got 30 companies globally with strategies. You've got corporates now pursuing their net zero targets. And so we're now getting down to the point where the big supply projects that are being proposed need to get towards an investment decision in the next 12 months in order to deliver in that 25, 26, 27 timeframe as the market is emerging. And I guess the best key data point for me is that Europe is now talking about 10 million tonnes of import demand by 2030. So there's a significant amount of upstream capital and development, obviously new shipping solutions and new storage solutions. So we think we do it one of the best ways in terms of its efficiency and simplicity. And I think evidence such as the Total announcement we hopefully will talk about shortly is the first validation of our approach, which is not new technology. It's just our approach to doing it.
What is your approach? Because there's some IP around your approach, isn't it? This storage and transport. What makes you unique?
Yeah, so there's a whole new class of vessels or ships required to move over distances so there'll be locations where there's going to be an abundance of supply and there's going to be deficit markets. So we've designed a new tank structure which is integrated into a basic mid-range tanker or a large-range tanker. And so there's 20 years of experience of building high-pressure vessel systems and integrating that in different structures. And so the way we've designed that and integrate that and connect that into the ship is our IP. So we've got a patent around that. We've advanced through what's called class approvals in the last 2 years, and we're looking to get approval for construction of that design later this year. So we're the only ones doing compression in a large format shipping. There are containerized versions, and indeed compressed hydrogen's been around for 50 years. Okay. So the actual method of compressing hydrogen is not new. It's just the novel way of which we design a ship and then how we integrate that into the project and deliver this kind of round trip supply chain.
I just want to get this picture right. Your IP, what you're doing, is the whole ship a hydrogen container ship, or are you taking a section of some of these container? Because a lot of container ships out there.
Well, no, these would be brand new ships that are what they call new builds, but it's basically a standard mid-range tanker, which would be a new build with integrated with our tank built into the ship.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So the tank gets built into the ship at construction, and then that's the way you're going to transport the hydrogen wherever or anywhere around the world?
No, we are limited in our economic range to 2,000 to 3,000 nautical miles. So in the example of Northern Australia to Singapore is less than 2,000 nautical miles, and to Japan and Korea is 2,800. If you were to draw a 2,000 nautical mile radius from the major ports of Europe, being the Netherlands and Germany, you basically capture, all of northern Norway right down to Morocco. So there's a lot of supply markets there into that major industrial belt.
All right. Well, I really want to talk about today's announcement, and it's a French company, so I'm going to try and say this with a French accent. Total Eren, I think it is. Total Eren.
Yes.
They're a big French company. Explain the importance of this MOU that's been announced this week.
Yeah, so yes, French-based. I think the large majority shareholder is Total Energies, the global major. Total Eren have been developing and operating multiple gigawatts of renewable assets to date around the world. They then have a very aggressive portfolio of proposed new development of hydrogen projects. So there's two in Australia. There's multiple in South America and in what they call North Africa. We have been working with them on the high energy project in Carnarvon in the west, but predominantly we're now focused trying to get supply from their projects into the European market. So Europe will be the first market for hydrogen, in our view, from a large-scale industrial perspective. There are ports now getting ready for the import, and we're working with one port operator. They then have connectivity into what they're calling the hydrogen backbone. So specifically built hydrogen pipelines, which are moving volumes from Rotterdam in the southern part of Netherlands all the way up into the industrial heartland of Germany.
It's almost like the whole infrastructure has to change, doesn't it?
That's true, but Europe's well advanced. I mean, they've been working on these projects for many years. They're going to start constructing this hydrogen backbone have the first of it being ready in 2024, and then 25, 6, 28, it continues to grow. So it's not in its design phase, it's actually in its implementation phase. There are also ports that are now connecting to salt caverns where they plan to store hydrogen. So if we've got market access through a port agreement, that gets you to the industrial users of the Netherlands and Germany, such as the large power generators, steel mills, and other industrial applications that use high grades of heat.
Just going back to Total Eren, what does it look like, this MOU? So how do you work together, and why did they decide to reach out to you? Because it's quite a big company.
So I guess the validation that it comes with that. So it's been a number of months of work. I can't say too many specifics, but in the announcement, it alludes to the fact that we have identified opportunities. They see the merits of compression in its simplicity and its efficiency. We need to demonstrate to them that we're economically competitive in the delivery of our compressed solution of their molecules. I think clearly the fact that we've made an announcement, we are getting there, and now they're looking to move forward on the development of their projects and using compression as either the preferred or one option to transport.
Okay, so what they're looking is they're saying you guys provide the ships with the container, if you like, the solution to transport it, and we'll work with you on our projects. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And so in that announcement, it alludes to support with shipyards, procurement, and potentially financing options as well.
That's where I was next going to come into, because I want to talk about funding. It's a big market, and I want to talk about the market as well, but funding of this, do you go into joint ventures, or how does it work? Because ships are pretty expensive toys.
Yeah, so we won't be building any ships on spec. So we're not looking to design and construct ships and put them to short-term charters. They will be under long-term contract.
Okay.
So having them under long-term charter or long-term contracts means that you can attract both equity and debt investment to fund the vessels. We will then partner with ship owners, so traditional ship owners that run large fleets, and then you'll have a ship operator. So, Provaris is not going to be sitting there buying multiple ships on its own balance sheet. That you'll have an owner in place, and then you manage the charter, and that's how you'll generate your income.
Last time we spoke, and I've actually had a question about this, are you a shipping company or are you a mining company? Because the last time we spoke about the Tiwi Islands green hydrogen export project up there on the Tiwi Islands, because that's actually a hydrogen project. So you've got two sides of the business, really, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it adds optionality to the investment proposition, but clearly what we're doing here, there's an opportunity for us to take leadership in the upstream production. No one else is doing compression as a transport method. Every project, though, does compress its hydrogen gas before it then either converts or reconverts it to another product. So when you hear about ammonia, for example, which is the predominant method, they all compress hydrogen before they turn it into the NH3 ammonia process. So what we're doing, we're just compressing and loading onto our vessels and moving it to the market. We believe that compression adds flexibility approach in the way you produce, and it loads follows. It can also reduce the amount of battery or storage requirements. That's additional capital to the process. So we're very comfortable and confident it's the right approach. People like Total want to integrate it into their own projects. And I think there are others that we are working with that will soon make it obvious that compression can be one of the ways. So we're not saying it's the only way.
Yeah,
we're saying it's a method to be first to market, and it's efficient over shorter distances.
Martin, I think sometimes people look at the sort of the de-risking milestones. What do you think the de-risking milestones for Provaris are at the moment?
Yep. So the last 10 months, we've been working on engineering, working with Class on the design and approvals of the vessel. So early December, we're expecting to get approval for construction.
Okay.
So what that means is that the design is ready for a construction decision, and there's still a bit more testing around material selection and some level of prototype testing of the tank itself. And so by mid next year, we'll be available to write our first shipping contract, and whether that's in our own Tiwi project or whether that's for a third-party group in Europe. So that IP will then be at a point where it can be commercialized.
Commercialization is further down the track, though. How give us I guess, an understanding of the news flow. I'm talking to you now in sort of coming up towards the end of September 2022. What do you think are the key milestones going forward into as you build and develop the company out?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I think one of the next key milestones is really around the ship itself. Approval for construction means that then we can advance it further into the integration of other projects.
Okay, yeah.
For the Tiwi project itself, we've done design concept study. We've lodged our EPA referral with an outcome next month. And then we're looking to partner with a large development group to come in and assist with taking that through an investment decision, and then obviously from a construction and finance point of view. So I think the shipping itself is on track for a key milestone this year. Can we bring in a partner to demonstrate the value and approach of Tiwi as a compressed hydrogen export project? And then I think the announcement of what we're doing in Europe, a lot of activity, a lot of discussions. So which is the first announced project which is looking at compression is, I think, a major milestone for us as well. Is that this year before Christmas, or is it early next year?
We're all talking about energy at the moment, Martin. We're all talking about the energy crisis. Everyone's talking about how, and look, I look at it and think, I'm talking to you on Zoom. I've got a mobile phone. Computers are everywhere. We need more and more and more energy solutions. I would love to hear from you. I'm sure our audience would as well. How big is this hydrogen market? There's lots of different energy solutions, as we all know. How big is this hydrogen market, and how important is it to the energy crisis?
Yeah, so if you read some of the big macro visions of the sector and how big it gets. So, roughly 90 or 100 million tons produced today, typically in industrial processes. A lot of that goes to fertilizer, etc. It then can grow to 5, 6, 700 million tons between now and 2050. So it is one of the key methods to decarbonize certain industries. And so the phasing of that comes in. So the European market has forecast that they will use 20 million tons by 2030, 10 domestically from a supply point of view, and 10 from an import perspective. So when we talk about projects that are 1 to 2, possibly 3 gigawatt in scale, that's getting towards 1 to 200,000 tons of hydrogen per annum. We're still a small part of that market, but we are probably the first mover advantage to get that volume to market. So immense amount of market opportunity for us, but globally it's huge. In terms of the energy crisis, having just spent 2 weeks in Europe, it's absolutely real, and it's accelerating. It's accelerating the incentives being put in place to generate supply. Lots of talk about corporates committing to the downstream application, but where's the supply going to come from? We've seen some offtake in the form of MOU from the German utilities. I think soon you will start to see industrial users move to an offtake discussion because they need the supply to be committed. And so I think the next catalyst for the industry itself and for us is when you see European industrial users commit to offtake, that generates supply. And then I think you'll see compression start to play its role as to one of the solutions being selected to get towards how it gets transported.
Do you think that's potentially, there's a little bit of a lack of understanding of how big this market could be from the general investment community?
I think there is in Australia. There's a lack of understanding in different parts of the world. I think a lot of focus still on natural gas, given its elevated pricing. But the downstream applications are starting to appear. We've been talking to port operators, pipeline operators, utilities, and industrial customers. So it's the molecule that they want. So all of this talk about ammonia is great for its end use case in ammonia, but it's not hydrogen. It needs to be cracked and purified. So if we can deliver the hydrogen molecule efficiently and as cost competitive as the alternative, well, then we've got a strong case. So I've come back super bullish and confident that we are applicable.
Yeah.
And so you'll see that in execution over the coming months.
To go back, to go back to that question before from an investor, are you a mining company or a shipping company? I guess you're both.
Well, sorry, Kerry, we're definitely not a mining company, but we are an energy company.
Energy company. Energy company or a shipping company.
Yeah, and I think the way investors should be viewing as hydrogen. Yes, there will be these mega scale projects in Australia, but your ability to produce hydrogen in regional markets closer to where the industry application needs to be used, and the shorter the shipping distance, the more favourable compression is.
Right.
So there's a lot of renewable companies that have excess supply of power at peak periods and new supply coming on stream, where they want to use hydrogen to take advantage to balance the market, but also use their ability to produce power in one location and sell it as hydrogen in another. So I think a number of renewable companies are now going to get involved in the upstream production, and it won't just be the oil and gas majors that are talking about it.
How important was this MOU, this Total Eren MOU to you? How important do you think that was as validation of what you're doing?
Well, I think it's very important. We're the only one doing compression at large scale format. There is a containerized version. So the industry has been asking me for some time, and investors ask me a lot about, well, if this is the right approach, who's going to validate that for you? And so you don't get these announcements out of these big companies easily. And so there are others that are coming along through the queue as well. So our job as executive is to try and cultivate as many of those as we can. But Total have been a wonderful partner so far, and we are becoming more embedded into their approach to delivery.
Well, it's a big company. That's good validation. Martin, we're running out of time. And you know how I like to finish up these conversations. Let's wrap it all up and sum it up with 3 reasons people should be sitting up straight up and taking notice of Pravaris right now.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll come back to the energy crisis. It's not just about high energy prices. It's the acceleration to new energy. And I think hydrogen is front and center for Europe. So that's coming. It's not a decision, it's a function of when. I think the second one is the validation we've been speaking about. So it's taken us 2 years to get to this point, but the last 6 to 8 months has been a lot of work to get the first global organization to recognize us publicly. So from an investor's point of view, and I think it will attract other industry players coming to us. Thirdly is just the optionality in the share price and the valuation. So less than a 40 mil market cap. Are we getting valued for the upstream molecules we're going to develop and produce at Tiwi, or are we getting valued on the midstream component? But I don't think we're getting valued for all of it. So we actually bring IP to the table, and I think that's the fourth one I'm going to slip in here.
Oh, Kerry. He's not. 3. Okay, I'll let that go through to the keeper. What's the fourth one?
Well, I think we bring something to that is IP based. So we're the only ones developing this. So as soon as we write our first contract at some point, the value of the IP goes up. So we become a very attractive proposition, not just from a development point of view, but what do you actually bring to the industry? Well, we bring our own competitive advantage.
That's a great way to finish. So I'm glad you slipped that one in, Martin. They do have their own IP. That's the competitive advantage. Go and check them out. The ASX code is PV1. Martin Carolan from Pravaris. Great to see you back here on Small Caps. Come back again soon. Let us know how you're going.
Thanks, Kevin.